Do you like big explosions? If yes, I have something to show you. Hey everybody, Ronarray here, and today I want to showcase my Meteor Fireball custom critical build. I really like how those two spells can interact together and what kind of damage they can provide, since Meteor currently can do a lot of damage, to be honest. And Fireball on the other hand costs 0 mana and can be pretty nice to use. You can also generate some ward and just run through your enemies while exploding everything along your way. Let's go forward and see how the build works and what you will need to create something similar yourself. So talking about how the build works, we are kind of focusing on our fire damage and using Harbinger of Stars. So that's a unique build that gives you 9% chance to cast Meteor on crit if you are above 0 mana. Since our Fireball critting 100% of the time, we are casting a lot of Meteors with Harbinger of Stars that way. We're also receiving some Meteor levels and Meteor fall speed with Harbinger, so it's a pretty nice build by itself. We're also stacking additional passives as Meteor, such as Twin Meteor, Meteor Shower, and Rain of Fire, to get as many meteors as possible in one zone. And such passive as Extinction give us a lot of base crit chance for Meteor itself, and a chance for a larger meteor on hit. That way we can cover whole area and hit one enemy a few times. Since our Fireball costs 0 mana, we also can non-stop spam it to get different bonuses such as Fire Resistant Shred from Flame ability or additional mana regeneration from our unique affix at the helmet that give us 35% chance to gain 20 mana when you directly cast Fireball. With all of that together, our build can pretty much shred through enemies just while casting Fireball and some occasional support skills on the way. So talking about how we need to manage our mana. Most of the time that build will stay without mana like at all. Your Fireball costs 0 mana, so just cast it instead. And when your mana will be regenerated like at least a liter above the 0, you will cast the Meteors. That will pretty much eat your mana again. So you're getting mana from a few different sources while you're casting Fireball. First off, your mana regeneration is working. Second, you have 30 to 40 chance to gain 20 mana when you directly cast Fireball from your helmet buff. It's pretty important and it should work just fine by itself. You also have a really nice bonus from passive called Cycle of Fire when you have a Craterborn. You have Craterborn every time when your Meteor cast, so you should have it like almost all the time. That way you're getting 4 mana every time when you're casting your Fireball when you have a Craterborn. And on top of that, you have a passive called Unsealed Mana. That way, when you directly use 3 skills in a row that cost 0 mana, you will get a burst of mana. That mana burst will provide you 15 mana as well. So about 20 from just casting, 15 from the burst, and about 2 from every cast because you have a Craterborn. All of that together should help you to regenerate your mana constantly. And if you're at 0, just continue running around and casting Fireball, and eventually you will get your mana back. So talking about our skill setup. In Meteor, we're going right, taking Meteor Shower, Twin Meteors, and Rain of Fire just to get as much Meteors as possible. To fix our mana issues, we are taking Manifold because it's pretty nice and lower the mana cost significantly. We're also taking Aftermath because Aftermath can get at least some of our mana back. And 2 points into Cycle of Fire will help us to get more mana from Fireball casts, because we will always have Craterborn and we will always cast Fireball too. 4 points into Extinction will raise our base crit chance of Meteor, make sure that we're always critting with it, and it will give us chance to hit with a large Meteor with higher AOE. Higher AOE will pretty much lead to us clearing the whole screen with Meteors, which is pretty nice. Moving to the Fireball, here we need to take all points to the left, taking Fire Spray, Embers, and Dancing Fire for as many projectiles as possible. I'm taking only 2 points into Skira Gambit because it's enough to reach 100% critical strike chance with our passive 3. So Skira Gambits will give us 4% of base critical strike chance. I'm also taking Orb of Destruction for 3 more, 2 points into flammability, because that way we can shred fire resistance on enemies, and it will raise the damage of Meteor as well. 1 point into flame burst for additional damage, and 2 points into mana sphere. Just always check that your fireball should have 0 mana cost. That way we always can cast it, doesn't matter what happens. And it will pretty much help us to regenerate mana and help us to sustain our meteors as well. As a utility spell, I'm using Snap Freeze, because that way we can just crowd control all the bosses in the game. I'm taking Cryomancy for freeze duration, together with Freezing Mist for even more freeze duration. On top of that, Snow Flurry for mana efficiency and Adept for cast speed can pretty much help you as well. In the Flame Ward 3, we are pretty much taking everything to survive better. Barrier, all 5 points because it's completely amazing, 3 points to Prismatic Buffer, I'm taking Recollection for Ward Retention too, and Dilation for higher duration of Flame Ward itself. Also Dual Ages, just amazing for utility, because that way you always will have a charge of Flame Ward on top of you. I also really like Astonish, because sometimes you're getting stunned and it can pretty much help in such situations. The last is our movement skill, Teleport. I really like how mirror images are behaving right now, so I'm pretty much using Unexpected Copy together with Decomposition. It can raise mana cost of Teleport, but we have a lot of mana and it should work just fine. 3 points into Ether Barrier could be just nice little cherry on top, but Crystalline Passage for 250 armor and 10 dilation, which will raise our duration of buffs from Teleport itself, just awesome for additional bonuses. So talking about our passive tree, we are going the usual road that Sorcerer takes. 5 points into Warden will help with ward retention, 5 points into Mage Flurry will provide cast speed for our fireball, and Arcanist will pretty much buff our resistances and provide intelligence, which will help with both damage and ward itself. Into the Sorcerer tree, I'm taking Arcane Momentum and Essence of Celerity for all the bonuses. 5 points into Calculated Destruction are pretty important, because they will provide additional critical strike chance per intelligence, and it's really important for the build to reach 100% critical strike chance. On top of that, 5 points into Spellslinger, Archmage, and Recollection is pretty much recommended for all mage builds. Since we are a crit build, I'm taking Arcane Obliteration, and 5 points into Lavamancer for fire penetration, and fire damage leech will be really helpful too. 6 points into Wisdom can get some mana regeneration based on our mana, and after that we can move to the Rune Master tree. In the Rune Master tree, it's important to get unsealed mana for cast speed and burst, since we are using 3 skills in a row and it's mostly our Fireball. With Fireball we are receiving the burst pretty consistently. I'm also taking 8 points to Sphere of Protection, because it will give us a pretty significant bonus, less damage taken from ignited enemies, and almost all enemies around always ignited. 5 points into Cataclysm are pretty nice as well, they will give us more damage against low health enemies, and will provide enough critical strike chance for us to reach 100%. 6 points into Scribe Instruments is pretty nice, because we are receiving a lot of critical strike multiplier with the wand, and we are using the wand. And 6 points into Transcendence will give us health and ward per second. That will be pretty much alright, because we have 60 intelligence. So talking about our items, we are focusing on raising our fire damage mostly. First of all, we are using Harbinger of Stars. We need fire damage and increased health on top of that. And Meteor fall speed should be pretty high as well, because it will raise our quality of life. Less damage taken for each meteor you have cast recently is a pretty nice bonus, and chance to cast Meteor on crit if above 0 mana is the most important part of the build. That way we can cast our meteors while we just casting the fireball that costs 0 mana. So try to get Harbinger as fast as possible, because it's the main item that pretty much is build enabling at that point. I'm using Twisted Heart of Ankyros because 20% increased health is really nice. Also 8% of current health converted to ward when we are casting an elemental spell is pretty nice too, because we are receiving some wards that way, and we are just leeching our health back. On top of that, we will need Catalyst with 6% spell critical strike chance, it's pretty important. Try to get it as fast as possible too, because it will help us to reach 100% critical strike chance. On the catalyst itself, cast speed and resistances are the most important stats. As a wand, I'm using Cinder Song, because that way we can get a lot of bonuses for our fireball, and it will cost less mana that way too. You can buff critical strike multiplier and fire penetration on top of Cinder Song, and anything like stun chance could be a nice bonus on top of that. As a helmet, you will need another unique buff which is pretty important and will help us to get our mana back. 35 chance to gain 20 mana when you directly cast a Rune Bolt or Fireball. That way we can pretty much get our mana back to cast even more Meteors. Try to get tier 7 of that buff because it's pretty important and will help with sustain of mana heavily. On the amulet you can just get multiplier, spell damage and health, and it's pretty much enough. At the boots we will need a base that provide cold resistance because that way we can get our cold resistance back. We are getting lightning and fire from our passives and we need cold on the boots because of that. Critical strike avoidance stacks pretty good with our blessings, so get at least 32% and higher there. And movement speed and health is just nice. As the glass, you will need cast speed because when we are casting faster we are receiving more mana, when we are receiving more mana we are casting more meteors. Everything else is not that important, any kind of health and intelligence will do. At the rings, just try to get a lot of intelligence and health, and one base should be with elemental resistance and second with necrotic. You can also get some additional resistances here instead of health. If you need them, it will work just fine. And on the body armor, you will need levels to Meteor, because that way we can stack more cool passives of the Meteor itself. On top of that, health, armor and intelligence would be helpful for the build too. Talking about our idols, I generally roll one with mana, armor percent and mana percent, one with mana and war per second, and two big ones with increased area for elemental area skills, because that way our Meteor will have bigger area and will just hit more enemies. Also 12% increased armor and 12% increased mana works just fine, so both of the big ones should be like that. Smaller ones should just have health and elemental resistance, and lower ones are pretty nice because you can get physical resistance and stun chance that way. For our blessings, I'm taking spell damage leached as health, critical strike avoidance, mana here, armor, and armor percentage. That's pretty much a basic setup and you don't need to change a lot about that. So that was my custom critical Fireball and Meteor Sorcerer build. I hope you will be able to enjoy that flashy gameplay. Thank you very much for watching, please like and subscribe for more RPG content, and see you next time.